So Seema, take me back to the end of 2019. What were the series of moments, sorry, 2020. What were the series of moments that led to your trigger moment to want to begin your journey?
Yes, it's one I actually don't think I'll ever forget. So it's basically, I was quite big at that time. And my son said, "Oh, Seema, let's go, mummy, let's go. I want to take a race with you." So I said, "Okay, fair enough." So he said, "I want to go up the stairs racing with you." So I said, "All right." So I shot up with him and he just raced across. And I literally fell at the floor at the top of the stairs and I couldn't breathe. I was literally panting for breath and I've got like a really shooting pain in my chest. And he had just shot, so he didn't even wait to turn around and look at me. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I actually can't breathe. This is some kind of like, cardiac arrest coming on, and I sat at the top of the stairs and I just went, and I breathed and breathed. And then slowly I sort of came back to normal. And I think that was the point I realized that the weight that I had was affecting not only the way I look, but my breathing as well. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to if I give it a couple of months, I'm going to end up in hospital. So I really have to do something about it. And that was the point. I said, you know what? I have to make this absolute change. And not a change that, because I've been yo-yoing about, so not a change that, would make me reduce weight and then I'd pile it back on, but something that would just change me for life. So yeah, that was my trigger moment.
That's quite the trigger. I mean, if there's anything that's going to spur you into action, that's going to be it. If we discuss what led you to that position where you felt your fitness was very poor, struggling with your breathing, it was obviously affecting your self-confidence in the mirror, etc. Mm-hmm. Talk us through what were some of the biggest problems you were facing that was causing you to gain weight at a rate that was debilitating for your day to day.
Yeah, so Akash, so basically, prior to me getting married and me getting pregnant, I was really horrifically skinny. I was, I think, 41 kilos. And then when I got married, we discovered the love for food, firstly, and my husband. And then I got pregnant and I had a lot of complications during pregnancy. Horrendous complications, so much so that I couldn't walk for more than 5 minutes a day in order to keep my baby. So my baby is actually known as a miracle baby on the medical notes. But in order to do that, I just was sort of almost, couch bound, seat bound and bed bound. And I was just eating left, right, and center. And I put on a humongous amount of weight. So much so that when I went to the delivery room, I stood on the scales and I was like a honking 107 kilos. And I was like, whoa, So after giving birth, a lot of it was water weight, but I managed to get back to some kind of a shape, about 65 kilos. And that took me about 7 months. But after that, I could never maintain it. I tried the keto diet. I tried the Atkins diet. I tried a whole load of diets and exercise. So I was, running daily, etc. But I kept going back to, I look good now. So now I can start eating again. It wasn't ever a thing where I thought, you know what, I have to hit a certain number of steps a day and I need to maintain this routine. That kind of, mentality was not stuck with me. It was always, now that I look good, I can now start eating. So I kept going yo-yoing from, 70 kilos back down to 65. And I reached 60 kilos. And that for me was like, I look amazing. And then during COVID, I discovered I became a baker. So I started to bake lots and lots of cakes and started cooking, discovered my passion for cooking. And when you cook that, who's going to eat it? Because there's no social distancing. It's you who's going to eat. Discovered this. It was almost like this heaviness on my rib cage.
Sorry, Seema, you just slightly cut off there, saying after you said, who's going to eat it?
Yes, I said, who's going to eat it when we're socially distancing? It's just us, right? So I just piled on the weight, and then I felt this weird heaviness on my rib cage starting, I would say, last August. And obviously, it didn't really have that impact on me until I had that race up the stairs. And that's when I discovered, oh no, I can't keep bouncing around, can't keep losing 5 to 10 kilos, thinking that that's going to be okay. And then going back to eating, it was my mentality. And I just couldn't hit that spot. I was like in search of something to help me and really, really help me, because I needed the help so desperately to get me to the point where I could live a healthy lifestyle with food and with exercise.
What did you feel and see when you looked at yourself in the mirror back then?
Awful. I mean, I think one of the moments where I realized, oh dear, was when I went to a friend's first birthday party. My wedding makeup artist walked straight past me, and I was like, oh, hi, how are you? And she said, sorry, I don't recognize you. And I thought, oh no, And then when I told her who I was, the absolute shock on her face. And I thought to myself, wow, if this is not a wake-up call, I don't know what is. And then later I found out that she told the friend whose birthday party I went to, the mum, I didn't know that was Sim, that she's completely unrecognizable. And then I have friends and family who are incredibly opinionated. And if it's not my mum whispering in my ear every time she meets me, everybody was asking me, are you pregnant again? And I was like, no, I'm not pregnant again, and I'd get really upset. And then I'd come home and tell my husband, why would they say that? And then he would just look at me, and I would go look at myself in the mirror and go, okay, I know why, so it was really bad. I was, everything in my closet was, how can I conceal, how can I conceal my weight? Everything was black. I understand I'm wearing black today and I love the color black, but everything was like maybe 2 sizes bigger, and nothing I could wear was, complimentary. Every time we would go somewhere, the first question I would ask anybody in my house, the fashion brands look huge, So everybody that I met, my friends, my family, they were very opinionated. So they were, asking me, oh, are you pregnant again? And I was like, no, I'm not pregnant again. And I used to get really upset about it. And everything that I used to own in my closet was, black, large. And whenever we'd go out, so I'd almost sometimes cancel the events that we needed to go to, unless I specifically had to be there for a wedding or something else. But I would just say, no, I'm not feeling well, or I'd just blame it on the son that he's not feeling well. And I just didn't like the way I looked, and I would absolutely dread when it was summertime, because I know during summer I couldn't be wearing these huge things to conceal my arms and my legs all the time. So I just got into this mode where I would just tell my husband, well, you go, you take my son and go. I don't want to come. So it was affecting everything. And I was just really embarrassed by the way I looked. And didn't want to. I would also shy away from, Zoom calls, which everybody would be having Zoom calls during the COVID lockdown. Because every time people would see me, they'd say, the discreet people would say, oh, you're looking healthy, and then family and friends would be like, oh my God, Sim, what's happened to you? And I'd be like, oh God, here, I have to explain myself again, So I got tired of that horrible cycle. I got tired. And what I would do in that instance would not, realize, oh, well, maybe you need to lose weight, go running, go do something. It would be like, oh, getting a little bit depressed and going and just snacking again, So it was an absolute vicious cycle.
And have you, on reflection, have you been able to kind of dig deeper into what the muck was? I know you mentioned that there's been yo-yoing. You mentioned certain points in your life when you got married, COVID. Have you uncovered what the underlying muck is for you, or has been?
I think the underlying muck for me was if I look at it, it was a combination of things. So it was just laziness, but it wasn't entirely laziness. So it was just that, my workload, my work in general is so, you've got to be on top of it. It's incredibly competitive. You slip once and you're gone, basically. And the amount of hours that I put into every day is not the 9 to 5 at all. I mean, just a couple of days, I was 22 hours straight, because the demand for what, my work involves is so high that I thought to myself, okay, when I get those few hours to myself, when my son is asleep, I could go out for a run. But no, I don't want to do that because I'm knackered. I just want to lie on the sofa and get chocolate, get crisps, watch a movie and just wind down. So that was the essential muck that I was in. I just felt like I didn't have the time or the capacity to be able to make that change. And there was nothing that, that trigger moment that came in. There was nothing at that point that made me realize, oh no, no matter what anybody said about me, I still went and ate. But I didn't have a health issue really that made me realize, you know what, I've got to go do something about it.
How's it affecting your performance at work now that you've kind of seen some of the benefits? If you look back, how were you at work? Because your profession is a doctor, right? How did you manage that almost paradox of being a doctor yet not looking after your own health? That's something, it's not uncommon.
Yeah, it's so strange. It is so strange. So
talk us through the mindset of that.
I know. So I knew that, everybody, my family and friends, I felt like I kind of became a bit of a recluse when it came to speaking to people about being healthy and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, because at the end of the day, they're just going to look at you and say, really, what about you, So I became a recluse in that. So in terms of what I do, mine is more oncology related. So I'm not essentially a GP or a nutritionist that I would, be telling my patients or because now I work in clinical trials, so it's not face to face with anybody. But I kind of, just went behind a laptop, decided to work from home, even though I did have, being a key worker, the facility to go into the office. I didn't want to go into the office because everybody would look at me and say, okay, she's put on a lot of weight. She's not looking after her health, yet she holds the title that she does. So it definitely did impact my mind, and I became a recluse just behind a laptop. If I had Zoom meetings, I would just focus on the face and nothing below. But yeah.
Yeah. So you started in January 2021. Talk us through the start of the process. How did you find getting going? How did you find the overhaul in your lifestyle? You've gone from the pandemic in 2020 to now, I'm going to make a change. How did it all begin?
So I tell you what, it's from the time I made the application. So that time when I recovered proper breathing or stable breathing, I came downstairs and I told my husband, I said, Lord, this is what's just happened to me. And I really need to do something about this. And there was a friend of ours who had done just been through the RNT process, and he had literally just, I think it's karma, right? It's fate, it's something, just put his checkpoint pictures on Facebook. And I was sitting there talking to my husband, and I was looking at some more diets or some more, exercise programs that I could implement to help myself on Google. And I said, let me just go to Facebook and, go through social media. And I saw his picture and I thought, what the hell? My jaw dropped. And I said, there is no way that this is real. Not within that time frame. That's not real. This is falsification. So we called him up, and even my husband was like, whoa. We called him up and we said, look, is this real? Is this what you really look like? And then he FaceTimed us. And I said, no way. I said, how? And he said, listen, there's a program called RNT. He said, I've just been on it for, and I think his was an 8-month process. He said, I've been on it for 8 months and this is what I look like. And he goes, and you can see right now, this is exactly what I look like. It's not, false, so it's not like a fad thing. And he said, if you've got to do anything for yourself with the way you're feeling, you've honestly got to give this a chance. So I was like, what? So I jumped onto it, and him and his wife had done it, and she just looked incredible as well. And she's got 2 kids, so she understood my struggle after having a child and how difficult it is, and with work and all the other pressures as a mom as well. She was like, Sim, you really need to do this. So we jumped onto your social media platform on Instagram, and I just started going through everything, and I was like, this is a joke. And my particular attention obviously was to the women, and looking at the women's physiques is when they start. And then, for example, 24 weeks later, I was like, how is this possible? And then, when you read their profiles, some mothers to 3 children, mothers with a hectic workload. I'm like, or a work life, sorry. I was like, no. These guys have a key to something we have no idea about, we've got to join this. So I spoke to my husband, and he looked at me and he said, we both need to get on this ASAP. So then I put in the application, and I promise you, not only a happy dance, but I promise you, I probably screamed with delight in the house when, an email got sent back saying, yeah, you're ready for the January cohort, you're going to be in for the January cohort. And I was absolutely screaming with delight. But my son was like, Mommy, what is it? And then that's the time I just, grabbed him and I said, listen, Mommy can't run with you right now. But just give me a few months. My son's name is Zayden. I said, Zayden, give me a few months and Mommy will be able to run with you for as long as you want, for, whenever you want, basically, So he was so excited, and he was like, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, Daddy too. And from that point onwards, I just have to say that, there was no neglect, because sometimes when you enter a program or you enter anything, they kind of, you get a couple of emails and then you're out of touch. But nothing like this, honestly. There was a constant check-in with us, even before our actual check-ins, as to filling out the application form, as into when your RNT coach will be introduced to you, what you need to do to prepare yourself to start the process. So we were engaged from the time we started. So I was completely engaged, and, I was deciding, okay, fine. Clearly, it looks like at that time we were towards December, we were all going into those tiers of a lockdown. And we were in tier 4, and I just knew, and obviously being in the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, you have that kind of inside knowledge into what the government might be implementing. So I knew we were going into another COVID lockdown. So getting our, equipment at home in ready, because we knew that the gyms won't be open for us to go and do the things that we were going to go and do. And then when I started it, I just had full-on motivation from the time I started, because I just had this unmatched, what's the word? Belief in this program. Belief because of what my friend went through. A couple of other friends were in the August cohort as well, and they were coming out looking amazing, even though they didn't have checkpoints, but they were showing us their pictures. So there was this absolute belief in RNT that, if I focus, if I adhere, this was the main thing for me. I have to adhere, because if I don't adhere, I've wasted my money, I've wasted my time, and I've wasted their time, and my goal will be unachievable. So I said, I just have to absolutely be adherent. And that's just it. I started, and I remember, batch cooking. And I was thinking, oh, Lord, because I used to prepare fresh meals every day. And I thought, oh, no, batch cooking isn't going to sit well with me. And it just worked out perfectly, because the strain that I had on me while as a working mom, with the hours that I had to prepare fresh meals. And I was like, oh God, another strain on myself for, as a mom. But with this batch cooking, I started to batch cook as well for my son, and I just had to prepare maybe a little couple of things, not stay in the kitchen for an hour every, lunch or every evening. And I found that took a lot of the pressure off me and spare time for me to do things like steps, for instance. So, yeah.
With the with the initial sort of get-go, you're a couple of weeks in, you're super motivated. Did you face any problems at the beginning? Like what sort of struggles?
Oh God,
Because even though
yeah,
you're
I
really motivated,
did.
there's always going to be problems, right? So what were the
Oh
problems you were
God,
facing?
yeah. I have to admit, this is hilarious. I think my RNT coach was like, "You're the funniest person I've ever come across," because I got a lot of cravings when I started. The cravings were absolutely ridiculous. So I was trying really hard. I was definitely a durant, so I never cheated or anything. But I had this, the Indian savory snack, chevra.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. So I had a load of it. Okay. And I'm a huge fan of it. So I had it in my snack cupboard. And every time I would pass it, I came to a point where I started to think about it all the time because I really wanted to eat it. And I get the sugary version, right? So I was craving sugar, but sweet and savory. And then there was a point where it was quite late at night and I'd just finished doing my steps. And I was walking past the snack cupboard and I opened it and I was like, I dragged it out and I looked at it and I was like, I love you, I miss you, and I cuddled it and I was like, oh, I want you so badly. And then I wrote to my RNT coach and just like midweek. And I said, this is what I've done. I've just proclaimed my love for, this thing. And my coach just laughed and said, oh Lord, this is hilarious. And I said, look, if you're craving it and you've been craving it for 2 weeks, like a lunatic, let's cut back your food for one day and you could have 100 grams of it. How about that? So I said the nutritional facts about it, sent it to my coach and they said, all right, you can have 100 grams. And honestly, I don't think I could hear anybody's voice in the house at that time when I was having that. I was just in total bliss. But yeah, cravings was definitely one thing that chocolate. So I know that, I couldn't go back to, my Ferrero Rochers and things like that. But there's, it was really helpful with the things that you would do, for instance, by speaking about, you can make brownies, for example, with dark chocolate. And I was like, oh, dark chocolate is the way to go. And then on the RNT nutrition plan sheet, there's, your calories for, or your macros and everything for dark chocolate. So I asked my coach, I said, can I incorporate this at some point? And I was told, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 pieces. So craving was definitely something that I struggled with. Funnily enough, the steps and the workouts in the gym, I did not struggle with that. Oh, only one thing I have to admit, the Bulgarian split squats.
Favorite lift. just on the training. Just on the training though, because before you said that you couldn't imagine training with the working schedule you had. How did that suddenly? You're now adding steps and training, so there's a couple hours a day there. Where did that come from that you didn't have before? What were you doing differently or thinking about?
Okay, I just made a decision to prioritize my health. So what I did was loads of people would ask for meetings. I mean, my schedule is ridiculous, and I was like, right, there is at some point I have to say what is really a priority with work and with me. So I just started filling in my work calendar with a 45-minute or an hour between 12 and 1 every day, so that nobody would look at my calendar and put a meeting in at that point. And the minute I would finish off a call, I would just shoot out, get my trainers on and just shoot out. And I would do an hour of steps there. Then what I decided with my husband is that we're going to, because it was all dependent on, when Zayden goes to sleep. So we would regulate it based on when we were supposed to be doing our workouts. So I'd say, right, Shen, you got to put Zayden to sleep on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, for instance. And that's the time that I would take to do my workout. And my workout would last 45 minutes to an hour, which is pretty much the time, taken to put Zayden to sleep. But that was taken away as well, and I would do my workouts at that point. And then after I finished off my laptop, so albeit 11 at night, for instance, I would literally just jump onto the treadmill behind me, as you can see, the treadmill behind me, and I would just finish off my steps. And I prioritized my health over everything. I started to have, it's really strange, but instead of going to the couch and grabbing a snack or a bunch of snacks and watching, TV. I would just put something on, Netflix on my phone, get onto the treadmill and say, you know what, I can still watch while I'm doing my steps, and I would just carry on doing my steps. And I actually found that the amount of energy, funnily enough, because prior to starting RNT, I was just like a slug. I was just sluggish. I was moving around. I'm knackered. I can't do this. No, I don't want to come out. No, I don't want to take my son to the park because that would mean me walking. Now, the amount of energy, even though I was exhausted at the end of the night, the amount of energy I had the next day was just, I was like jumping around, like, yes, go, and that increased motivation on all sorts. I think people at work saw a difference in me as well. When I'd start a meeting, I'd be more energetic, I think. So, yeah.
I think it's a really important message for high performers, because as high performers, it's so easy to just put work in front of everything else and let that completely consume your day. And it can be, there's always more work, isn't there? There's always another meeting to take. There's always another thing on your to-do list. That never really ends. And unless you just say, no, that's enough, like I'm going out for a walk, or I'm going to go for training, or whatever that may be, unless you actually proactively do it, it probably never happens, as you've experienced, right?
No, exactly. And the funny thing is, I always used to say before that, but if I cancel this meeting, people at work are going to get annoyed. They're going to say, oh, she's not working as much as she's supposed to. She's not. No, you know what? This is so strange, but it really taught me that by prioritizing my health, obviously the energy in me, the just the fact that I could prioritize, essentially, it's not about how much you work, it's about how smart you work, And if you're knackered anyway, even though you're working extra hours, what is the impact of you working those extra hours? Are you really the quality of it? So having that 1 hour outside, especially walking outside with the fresh air, coming back, you essentially feel far more rejuvenated.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah, I think
it's the paradox, isn't it? It's you think it's a false economy. You think it's going to help you by working more, but it actually backfires on you, and you end up being your biggest bottleneck.
Exactly.
So once you've built the momentum, you're a couple months in, you've got eyes on the prize for a potential photo shoot, a big checkpoint to mark your stage in the journey. What were some of the challenges you're facing later on, especially when you're entering the grind, where time really does become a big component of everything you're doing? Talk through some of the challenges you're facing as you started to get into uncharted territory that you've never been to before in your life.
So for me, with the grind, my biggest challenge was sleep. So in terms of getting those 7 hours of sleep, what I did do in preparation for the grind, in terms of, managing to hit my 20,000 steps and the extra workouts that you have, or extra time for the workouts, is I just informed everybody at work that, I'm going to be doing a few less hours, and I'm only going to be sticking to priority things, honestly. And they were like, okay, that's fine, so I just rejigged around things. I worked a little bit more on the weekend, as opposed to far more hours during the day, and what I would do, essentially, something that I incorporated in the grind that I didn't throughout the RNT process, and this is potentially all my fault, is I love sleep, right? And I'm not a morning person. I'm definitely not a morning person. I'm more of a night owl. But what I did during the grind is I would wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Normally, I would wake up at 7, but I'd wake up at 5, and that's when I would do, I'd say, quite a relatively huge chunk of my steps at that time. So I would do them on the treadmill. I wouldn't go at it because it would still be quite dark, but I would do those. And then I'd go for my hour walk at lunchtime, and then I'd recuperate the steps in the evening, or I'd go to the gym in the evening, do my workouts and do my steps there. But sleep was, because by the time I got home and completed my work, etc., I'd probably be hitting about 6 hours or 5.5 hours of sleep. That's something that I did struggle with a little bit. but I didn't struggle with anything else. I really enjoy, I mean, I find it strange, but there's a lot of people that struggle with a lot of things. But I didn't struggle with the steps or the workouts because of what I could see, the changes I could see. I absolutely love the grind, by the way.
Well, I think it comes back to what you said at the bit around January, is that you just had this belief that you could do it and you wanted to adhere. You didn't want to mess around on this. And I think the biggest commonality is actually having self accountability. Like you're doing this for yourself, no one else. You're doing this for yourself. You had a very strong reason to do it, and you held yourself accountable to it. You weren't relying on external forces to push you along. Someone wasn't telling you, "Come on, Seema, you got to go do your steps." You were like, "No, I'm going out and doing it." And that's a big differentiator in those I see who do really well versus those who keep having those struggles or continue to make excuses. They're just taking responsibility and saying, look, I'm putting the blinkers up. I'm doing this no matter how busy I am or what I've got going on in life. This is what I'm doing for myself.
I know, because I mean, on that note, why would I join this if it wasn't for my own benefit? And if it's for my own benefit, then I absolutely need to see it through. So I'm one of those people, even at work, in family, just one of those people. If I set my mind to it, I'm going to have to do it. There's no way out. And when it comes to something like health, you may be able to play around with other things in your life. But when it comes to health, weight, and just, because I think this all ties into, longevity of life. I have people who rely on me. I have a son who relies on me. The way I was at the beginning of, actually putting in my application for RNT, honestly speaking, I probably wouldn't have been able to see this boy grow, and, I have responsibilities for myself and for my family. So for me, being adherent and achieving what I set as a goal was a non-negotiable for me. I had to do it. There was no way around it.
Yeah. And since you've hit your target weight, you've hit your target physique you want to be in, how have you found consolidation, and what does life look like now for Seema?
It's amazing. Honestly, it's absolutely amazing. So I'll give you an example, Akash. My sister's traveled from Dubai, albeit having to quarantine in Montenegro, but she came to see me, and she wants to now join the process of RNT. Everybody I know wants to join the process of RNT because they can't believe it, And for someone like me, who they knew would yo-yo, right? So when I was at my checkpoint, I hit 46 kilos, right? And they thought, oh, now that she's had her checkpoint and she looks good and she's wearing her really tiny clothes, definitely she's going to bounce back, and we're going to see her consuming loads of food, and her capacity to adhere to training or the steps. It's not going to happen, because remember, we know the Sim who used to hit 60 kilos and think, that's it, let me just keep eating, forget training, I'll look great. Yeah, absolutely shell shocked, because in my consolidation, I've just put on maybe 1 kilo and 200 grams, and I don't want to, it's almost like there's a fear in my mind now. Don't relax, because you're going to go back to that point, and then what? So I adhere to my steps now. I'm not doing 20,000 steps, right? I'm doing about 13, 14,000. I know my coach said, go down to 12, but I like walking now. I love it. I can't live without, this is the funny thing. My whole lifestyle has changed. I can't live without doing my steps. I feel like, I'm pretty OCD with cleanliness. I'm pretty OCD with my work. And now I've become OCD with this. So if I don't hit my target, I'm not going to bed. If I don't go do my training, I'm not going to bed until I do it, So it's become a huge change for me in my mind and my lifestyle. So consolidation's fine. I did struggle with, when you increase the calories, I kind of struggled with that a bit, because all of a sudden I was eating a little bit more. So, but that's fine now.
Brilliant. There's no going back now, is there?
No. There's no going back.
So what would you say to people who are embarking the first stage of their journey? They're early on in their journey. It looks like a long road ahead. They're struggling with some of the problems that you were facing in the beginning. What would you tell them if you were speaking to them right now?
Okay, so I would say, first of all, you've done the best thing that you could do for yourself, which is joining the journey with RNT. I would tell them that this is definitely not something that they've done before, and that in terms of, it's not a fad diet, it's not cutting back on calories and eating salads all day long. You can eat what you want as long as you're within your macros. The food is delicious. You make your own food yourself. It's not like you're going to be having things which are tasteless, because there's a ton of recipes that RNT can provide if you feel like you're struggling. And I would say the one thing is support. The amount of support that RNT provides and the education you are provided within this process is unmatched. The other thing is, I would definitely ask people to be very adherent, okay, and very transparent and honest. So if you feel like the moments that I had where you were craving things, or you were hugging your snacks, or even if you slip up and eat something you're not supposed to, please be honest and transparent with your coach, because they are your backbone in this process. They are your support. Everybody struggles. I struggled. My husband struggled as well, who's on the RNT program. It's just about that communication with your coach, because the support they provide is something that you absolutely need for your mindset to change over time. And it's not a quick process. You have to understand that when you come into this, don't look at it as, oh, okay, so I'm going to lose a bit of weight, I'm going to get to this, and then I'm going to yo-yo back or volley back straight into what I used to be. Try and embrace this process, because it's literally insane what you learn during this process. It's not about just exercise or diet. It changes entirely the way you are as a person. Your motivation, your energy, your capacity to basically do whatever you set your mind to, So I would just say, be honest, be transparent with your coach, be adherent, because why are you starting on a process? If you don't believe in something, then don't start on it. Now that you've started on it, you've put the money aside for this. This is a change you want to see for yourself, and you want to see it for life, and don't volley back into what you used to be.
That's amazing. How are you going to be an even higher performer now, and how are you going to use the physical as the vehicle to achieve things you can't even imagine?
I think I already am doing that. Honestly, the passion, so one thing that I learned within RNT, that's, say, the non-physical appearance, right? The fact that I've lost a lot of weight and I've become strong. So it's not about only losing weight. It's about the strength that you have. That strength that you have, which physically can be shown as, say, muscles, is the strength of mind. It's amazing how RNT has taught me a lot of things. From the outset, I can't do this. I'm feeling lazy. I don't have the time. I have too much of a heavy work schedule. It's prioritizing. It's changing everything. It's the strength of mind. And now, I look at life and I think, oh, okay, there's a goal I need to achieve, always in work, but there's a goal I need to achieve. Oh, what am I going to do? No, now the amount of motivation, perseverance is another thing, right? Because to get to your goal within RNT or in life, you need to persevere. You need to go over the hurdles. You need to go over the obstacles. Perseverance, that strength of mind, that strength of character has really, really helped me. I think I always knew I had it. It kind of lapsed in between for many, many years, but it's come back even stronger. Yeah.
Amazing. What a story. And thank you so much for being so honest about what you've gone through in the past couple of years. And also, I'm really, really excited now to see how you continue to improve over the next couple of years, and what amazing things you do in your life, and the domino effect you'll have in your community. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
No worries at all. Oh, like one other thing I would say, which is something that I thought, when people start this process, they might think, because everybody has different circumstances where you feel like, oh, will I be able to afford this per month, for instance, or for the entire journey that you're on? I would just say that the price you pay for this is absolutely worth it, beyond worth it. But I'd say that keep the money aside because you're definitely going to need an entirely new wardrobe. And I think that's what I loved about this at the end. I was like running out there to buy all new clothes, and feel better. You feel amazing.
What a fantastic way to finish.